Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. The division championship Minnesota Twins are looking to go all the way to the World Series in 2024. Bolstered by inspirational shortstop Carlos Correa, a healthy Brian Buxton, and rookie phenom Royce Lewis, plus a pitching staff led by Pablo Lopez and an outstanding bullpen featuring Johan Duran, the Twins are the best bargain in the major leagues, and Target Field is the best venue in baseball. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Hello and welcome to Access to Democracy. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill Raker, your host for this edition of the program. We're welcoming back on the program today a returning guest, Matthew Carter, who's the Executive Director of the Dakota County Historical Society. And Buzz Anderson is a first-time guest who's a past or former member of the Board of Directors of Dakota County Historical Society. Matt and Buzz, welcome to Access to Democracy.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Well, as I recall, and maybe some of our viewers did too, that Matt, when he was here earlier, gave us a very interesting and informative, and I want to say enthusiastic perspective on the Dakota County Historical Society. So that was an impetus to have him come back and to bring you along, Buzz, and to share some more about the society with our viewers. Now, we're going to have the opportunity for you to talk a little bit about the society in case people are seeing this for the first time, and then you can give us some experiences that you've had as a board member of the society. And you can tell us some of the things that are in the future for Dakota County Historical Society. But we also want to hear what happened at the annual meeting back in January 20th. So we want to make sure that we have time to cover that in depth. So Matt, you want to start us off and just tell us a little bit, our viewers, about the society, what it is, what it does, and the organizations that you oversee?
Yeah, so the Dakota County Historical Society, we were founded in 1939. And we were founded in South St. Paul, and our mission is to preserve, interpret, and promote the history of Dakota County. And so with that, we operate 3 different historic sites. And my office is at our headquarters, which is the Loshie Museum in South St. Paul. And we have brand new exhibits in there. We opened those in January of 2023 after going through a $1.2 million renovation. And so with those renovations, we were able to do all brand new exhibits for the first time since that building opened in 1978. And so with the Loshie Museum being our headquarters, we also have our collections there. And so if anyone's looking to do research on Dakota County or even regional history, they can stop in, and we have an archive that we can pull files from, and they can kind of go through those and kind of explore that history, hands-on as they go through those documents. And then we also operate the Leduc Historic Estate, which is down in Hastings. And that's an 1866 Gothic revival house that was built during the Civil War, completed in 1866. So we operate that as a historic site. We offer guided tours to the public and special events and programs. Every September we do a Civil War weekend. So the entire grounds is turned into a Civil War encampment. It's not uncommon to be at the Quick Trip across the street and see a soldier getting gas or getting coffee as they get ready for the event. And we have concerts in the Orchard that's on the grounds in every August, on the Sundays of August. And then we also operate the Sibley site over in Mendota. and that's a partnership we have with the Minnesota Historical Society to operate the museum side of that. So a couple of different sites to maintain and kind of preserve that history.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Matt. And I want our viewers to know that we're showing on the screen the addresses of these different museums that are a part of the society. Now, Buzz, Matt was describing a lot of things that the Dakota County Historical Society does. But as a board member, former board member, how did you and the board contribute to what's going on there and provide some guidance to folks like Matt?
Well, first of all, you know, like any board member, we don't run the organization. We kind of set policy, and we try to support the staff so that they can carry out the mission of making sure that these 3 sites are available to the public. I have to say, too, that I think being a board member is a real privilege. So in the future, when people want to think about playing that kind of role in helping to preserve Dakota County history, you know, their invitation, it's kind of an invitation for them to seek out the possibility of actually becoming a board member. I'm a former history teacher, so for me, it lets me kind of extend that role that I used to have in terms where I asked students to help learn about history, and I always said that history is a roadmap. You can not only see where you've been, but I've always said you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. So as a board member, you get that opportunity to help make sure that that is available to the citizens of Dakota County.
Well, Buzz, you mentioned a couple of things that maybe it's worthwhile spending just a little bit more time on. First of all, you mentioned that you were a history teacher, and that kind of helped you get interested in history and preserving history. But you've had other careers that I think have contributed to your perspective about how to serve as a board member of a historical society. What are some of the highlights of the career that you had?
Well, I said I was a school teacher. I was an executive director of the Minnesota Retailers Association. I'm a former legislator. So in all of those positions, you're reporting to somebody, or you're helping someone in some way. As a board member, I always appreciated at the Retailers Association my board members helping giving guidance and direction to what we can do to improve the organization and help carry out our mission. As a legislator, I actually helped to make history. And, you know, someday we can maybe talk about some of the bills that I got passed into law.
I think that's a great idea.
But there's just a number of ways in my past. As a teacher, that also gives me a perspective on having presented historical facts to students who often said, why do I have to learn history anyway? You know, so all of those roles kind of contribute to giving me a certain perspective to help me. Hopefully, Matt would say that I was a good board member and helped the organization grow and prosper.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And the second thing I wanted to ask you a little bit more about is serving on the board. You mentioned that it's a volunteer position, and it was an honor for you to be a member of the board. So if other people who are watching us today have an interest maybe in serving on the board, tell us, what's the process? How do they do that? Or are there other ways for volunteers to get involved with the society?
Well, they can contact the Dakota County Historical Society at our Lauschie Museum, which is our headquarters. They can ask for Matt, or they can ask for Rebecca, and say, hey, I'd like to volunteer. Are there things that I can do? We have a plethora of events and sites for them to volunteer at. If they're interested in being a board member, all they have to do is say, I'd like to be a board member. What can I do to become a board member? And we'll kind of walk them through this process, filling out an application, meeting with staff and other board members to sort of figure out if they really are the kind of person that would like to really be on the board and contribute, because we tell them that they have certain obligations as a board member too, sure, to attend meetings, to volunteer for events, and so on. But we have 5 new board members this year, and we have term limits, which is a good thing, because after 6 years, a person has to leave the board, and then we bring new perspectives and new people on the board. And I'm very excited about the new board that has formed this year. Former mayor of South St. Paul, my neighbor, who is a former judge for the Department of Homeland Security, and a number of others that just have great backgrounds. And I know there's a lot of other people in Dakota County that would help the organization as well.
Well, hopefully there are interested parties who are watching our program and get in contact with Matt or someone at the museum's office and express an interest in participating, being more engaged.
If they'd like to be a volunteer, we have a space for them.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the events or activities, some special things that you may have planned for this year, maybe coming up later in the year or even further out in the future if you have things to talk about.
Yeah, so some of the items we have coming up this year, we operate the 3 different sites. So we're always looking at different programs we can add. So we have our mainstay programs. At the Sibley site, we have Mendota After Hours, and that's a monthly program that's May. We started doing them in April, so April through November. The Sibley site opens for tours on Memorial Day weekend, that Saturday. And this year, for the first time, we're actually going to be open on Fridays. So moving forward, every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they can stop in, do a tour at the Sibley site, which is a guided tour experience. And we also have some other events that we do in addition to Mendota After Hours. We have a FET event, which is a French-Canadian celebration. And so we do a few of those at that site there with the Sibley site. And then in Leduc, we have a number of events. I already mentioned Civil War Weekend in September, the concerts in August. But we also do teas. So we just did a Valentine's tea, and that one sold out at about 40 people. And we have a Mother's Day tea coming up in May, and that one's already about half full. So these teas, they get to immerse themselves in the site at the Leduc Estate, and they get served a tea. I think Buzz has probably been down there and helped serve the tea for us. So board members volunteer and help out, and they get to do a 3-course meal, get a different tea with every course. So, and then each event with the theme. So with Mother's Day, one of the things we've done in the past is we've had letters that were written between Mary and her daughters. And they would read them back and forth. So during Valentine's, they would read some of the letters between William and Mary as the mother and father, but also William would help create music. So we had sheet music that was created by the family that was played during the event. So we try and do a different theme to pair kind of with whatever the holiday is that they're being hosted. And then at the Lashy Museum, we have a number of genealogy programs coming up. And I should also mention too, the Leduc Estate is open May 11th, and then that runs through October. And they're open Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. You can stop in, do a guided tour at those sites. And by visiting our website at dakotahistory.org, you can do online registrations.
Okay. So
events like the teas, we usually don't have any walk-ins available because they're sold out. So those are some of the opportunities we have coming up this year. We also are looking a little further into the future with some exhibits. We have a George Daniels exhibit, and that exhibit at the Leduc Estate will look at the history of the area's African-American population and community that was specifically in Hastings, but also that region. And then we're also looking at doing a children's exhibit at the Lashy Museum in South St. Paul. And we're really fortunate to be going through the final design phase of that. And our goal is within the next year to 2 years is to have that completed, installed, ready for families to be able to come in and visit. And our Lashy Museum is a free museum. It's a community asset and a resource. So even though we'll be doing a children's exhibit that'll be the same quality that you could go to and see at the Minnesota Children's Museum, it's still going to be free to families. So, you know, ability to just come in and not have to worry about that potential barrier of a cost preventing you from doing so.
Well, you have a lot going on. and our viewers can find out more about these activities and the events and register or sign up for the ones that require registration just by going to the website. It's all right there, right?
That's correct. Yep, right on our website. There's a little calendar icon at the top, and that'll have all of our events for the year that are confirmed out there. So.
Well, I want to move to this next topic, which I'm very interested in and excited to hear you talk about. The Society held its annual meeting for this year a month or so ago, and it was a special program with special guests. I'd like for you, Matt and Buzz, to just tell us what happened there. What was it all about?
Yeah, so I'll go a little bit and then I'll turn it over to Buzz because he was the one that kind of helped orchestrate it. Mm-hmm. And so Buzz was talking with some of his acquaintances and friends of different things related to the organization, and Buzz kind of came in and said, hey, I know someone that would be able to do a great program. He was a pilot and he was flying during 9/11. And, this was around August, I believe, and we said, that's a really short turnaround to try and do a program, in August, get it ready for the September 11th. And as we were talking, he said, well, you know what, I know a few more people. And so we turned this into a panel discussion on 9/11, Dakota County aviation perspective. And I'll kind of let Buzz talk a little bit about who he was able to bring in for that.
Let's pause right there briefly, Matt. Maybe there are viewers who don't really know what 9/11 was or recall the significance of that date. Would you just share with us why that was important and significant?
Yeah, so 9/11 would be the September 11th terrorist attacks that took place in, kind of the east coast of the United States. And again, that one of the things we did a tour the other day and had a group of younger kids in there for it, and a lot of them weren't even born by the time in 2001 when that occurred. So it's an important area to be able to go through because it had a huge impact on everyone's life. That you can, if they were alive and old enough, they can probably remember where they were that day.
Yeah. So the World Trade Center went down in New York, and an airplane hit the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And every airplane on the planet, I think, landed on that day and had to stay landed for a couple of days.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So you were fortunate, Buzz, to know some people who were intimately involved in the activity related to that here in Minnesota.
Yep.
Who did you have on the panel, and how did they contribute?
Well, first of all, you asked me how my various different positions allowed me to be a good contributing board member. Well, all these different roles I've had, I've met a lot of people. And I've been privileged to know all three speakers. The pilot, for example, was flying from Amsterdam to Washington, D.C. in 9/11. And he started telling me this story one day, and I said, you should be repeating this story so more people can hear it. So I thought immediately when I mentioned to Matt, because we have so much equipment at MSP that was designed, a lot of in Dakota County, that helps with their traffic control, I said, we should be doing something on 9/11. So then I thought of this particular speaker. I'm in the local Eakins Lions Club, and one of the spouse of one of my colleagues, it was the managing director of airport operations on 9/11.
At MSP?
At MSP. So, of course, I knew him. And then from another organization, I happened to know a guy that's an air traffic controller who was working that afternoon. So I thought, this is a great marriage of speakers to be able to talk about having a certain perspective on that day that we as citizens who were all shocked watching this on TV, did not know. These people all had a special story to tell, and that's what they did at our program. And interestingly enough, each of them has told me, I learned a lot that day because I was so wrapped up in what I was doing. I didn't realize the pilots had to do this or the airport manager had to do that. It was a very interesting program, and we hope to do more of that kind.
Yeah, and the historical significance of it and the connections to Dakota County,
yes,
and this community is really significant.
Yes.
Yeah. Significant to the point that one of the terrorists that almost became a pilot on a plane but didn't had a connection here in Dakota County. Which of you want to tell us about that?
You maybe know more than I do.
Yeah, so one of the pilots, or potential pilots, as you mentioned.
The terrorist, yeah.
Yeah, he was at a flight training center in Dakota County, and he was actually going through the classes to learn how to fly. And word got out through the staff that there's a person here that's going through the process, but really only cares about in the air flying, a little bit about taking off, but mainly only cares about how to fly. Doesn't really care how to land. And so that set off a red flag to some of the instructors.
That's rather odd.
And the payment methods of wanting to pay in cash, things along those lines, all were kind of little red flags that were popping up. And they contacted the FBI, and they actually came in and arrested him. And this was about 2 to 2.5 weeks before 9/11 happened, when this person was arrested in Dakota County.
In Egan, in fact, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, in Egan. And the investigation revealed that this terrorist, who was training to be a pilot to take off and fly but not land, his target was what?
And I'm not entirely sure. I know I've heard a few instances of where they thought it was, but I don't know if I've heard it was the White House.
Yes, I think that's what I heard as well. And fortunately, we were able to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
You might also remember that a Dakota County resident, FBI agent, Colleen Rowley, I think was her name,
yes,
was the person
I've
responsible for the arrest.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I've known other pilots that were in Boston and took off right behind the two planes that were hijacked from there. There's literally all kinds of connections to Dakota County and what happened on that day. And it's good for us as citizens to learn about those things. It makes us more aware. I mean, terrorism is not going away. Right. And so they always say at the airport, if you see something unusual, then report it. So what I also think is interesting on that day is that Colleen Rowley, FBI agent, was not allowed to notify the CIA because there were laws passed in the 80s that would prevent the two from talking to each other.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, it's something that might have been prevented. It never got to the White House, obviously.
I think Colleen was a guest on this program several years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yes, she was.
Okay.
We're coming down to the final few minutes of the program, but you picked such an interesting and fascinating theme for your annual meeting, and I know it was recorded by one of the other community TV stations, I think. Matt, if our viewers are interested in seeing the entire panel discussion, and I have, and it's absolutely fascinating and informative, how can they access that?
Yeah, so the program was recorded by Town Square Television out of South St. Paul. And if you're looking for the program, it's as easy as going to Google and searching 9/11, a Dakota County aviation perspective. And it should pop right up, and they're hosting it through Vimeo, which is a similar kind of opportunity for video hosting, like a YouTube channel. But if you go there, you can watch that video right on Vimeo, and it's the full-length program that they were able to record for us. Okay, so you might tell our viewers again just what to Google in order to get it to pop right up. Yeah, just search for 9/11, a Dakota County aviation perspective. Well, hopefully they will do that and benefit from seeing this panel of individuals who had very specific and unique roles to play in that drama right here in Dakota County, which is a part of our history. Yeah, looking forward to it. So, Buzz, earlier we talked about folks who might be interested in volunteering to be on the board or some other role with the Historical Society. What are other ways people can support the Historical Society? Well, they can become a member. Let's talk about that. And membership is very inexpensive. I think a family membership is only, is it $45? So yeah, family membership is $60, and an individual membership is $40. So I mean, it's very inexpensive, and of course, it's these contributions help to support the organization, so that we can keep it free
so it's for the public to come in. It's very family friendly. I think we probably have one of the best county historical society buildings and museums in the entire state. I have no doubt that we have the best staff of any county in the state, and they are always searching for ways to make it more interesting to people. In this next phase, when we start doing, I think Matt already referred to it, the Children's Museum portion, it'll be even more family friendly. The other thing people can do is they can encourage businesses to support us.
Sure.
Because we need financial support, and it is a benefit for the community and businesses to have an informed citizenry. And they'll learn a lot when they come to our museum. A great deal of the air traffic control system was designed in Dakota County, and they can see how all of that was put together by a lot of the old machinery that used to actually run air traffic control systems. If you have time, I'll tell you another story about that.
We may have to have you
Yeah,
back,
okay.
Buzz, to learn more, because we're down to the final minute here of the program. We've been very fortunate to have as our guests today Matt Carter and Buzz Anderson with the Dakota County Historical Society, talking to us especially about the unique program that they had for their annual meeting for this year, and we hope you have an opportunity to view that. For our viewers who are interested in other episodes of Access to Democracy, you can find us at accesstodemocracy.com. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.